Before the world ever chanted his name, before the gold jerseys and NBA titles, Magic Johnson was just Irvin, a skinny kid from Lansing, Michigan, living in a house so packed with siblings that breathing space felt like a luxury. He was born on August 14th, 1959, into a family where hardship wasn't just a passing phase, it was a permanent roommate. His father, Irvin Sr, juggled grueling shifts at the General Motors plant and drove a garbage truck before dawn. His mother, Christine, cleaned classrooms until her hands cracked. The smell of metal and detergent lived in their clothes. And while there was love in that house, there wasn't much room. 10 kids, 1 roof, and not enough blankets in the winter. But what hurt the most wasn't the cold, it was the shame. Here's where things start to take a darker turn. On weekends, young Irvin rode along with his father during trash runs. To him, it was helping the family. But to the neighbourhood kids watching from porches, it became a cruel joke. They didn't just point, they laughed, they whispered, and then came the nickname, Trash Boy. It stuck to him like glue. No matter how many times he scrubbed his coat, the humiliation didn't wash off. Every Monday morning at school was a quiet battlefield. He didn't pray for A's, he prayed not to be seen. "Why does doing the right thing hurt so much?" he once asked. And that question didn't go away, but the pain didn't stop there. In 1971, the school district redrew its lines, and instead of going to the mostly black high school he hoped for, Irvin was reassigned to Everett High, a mostly white school. From the start, the message was loud, even if no one said a word. Teammates didn't pass him the ball. Conversations stopped when he entered the room. Teachers looked through him. Buses carrying black students rattled under rocks thrown by angry crowds. In the locker room, silence hurt worse than insults. And in the gym, the court that should have felt like home turned cold. He didn't belong. At least that's what they wanted him to believe. But this is where Magic's story begins to turn. Early mornings became his rebellion. Before the sun came up, in freezing Michigan air, Irvin dragged himself to the public courts behind his house. There was no crowd, no teammates, no laughter, just frost-covered concrete and a worn-out basketball. And in that silence, he built something powerful, his own worth. He practiced no-look passes not because they were flashy, but because they were his voice when no one listened. Each dribble was a way to say, "I matter." And slowly, that quiet boy, the one carrying trash, carrying shame, carrying silence, started to burn with belief. Maybe, just maybe, he could become something more than the name they gave him. This was the spark, before the lights, before the fame. It all started with a kid who refused to let the world shrink him. Everything began to change the moment Irvin Johnson stepped onto the court like he belonged there. At 15 years old, in the middle of a dusty, dimly lit gym, he dropped 36 points, 18 rebounds, and 16 assists in a single game. It wasn't just a good performance, it was a moment that cracked open the future. A local reporter saw the stat sheet, blinked, and whispered a word that would follow him forever: Magic. At first, Irvin didn't know what to do with that name. It felt big, too big. When he told his mother, Christine, she didn't exactly celebrate. "Only God performs magic," she said gently. He understood, but deep down, a piece of him held onto it anyway. Maybe for the first time, the world was finally starting to see what he already believed. But tragedy doesn't care how high you're climbing. In 1976, just 1 year after that magical game, Magic faced something no teenager should ever have to carry. His best friend, Reggie Chastain, was killed in a car accident at just 18 years old. Reggie wasn't just another teammate, he was the only one who passed him the ball when others froze him out. The only one who stayed after practice. The only one who whispered, "You're special, man. One day they'll all see it." Magic stood in front of Reggie's empty locker for weeks. He whispered to it after practice, "I'm still here. I'm not done." And when Everett High won the Michigan State Championship in 1977, Magic didn't celebrate. He didn't pump his fists. He just looked up and raised the trophy toward the rafters, as if it belonged to Reggie. That moment wasn't just a win, it was a promise kept. By 1977, Magic was headed to Michigan State University. He wasn't just carrying a duffel bag, he was carrying grief, memories, and the fire that Reggie had helped light. under coach Judd Heathcote, practice was brutal. Long drills, tough film sessions, heavy expectations. But Payne had been Magic's coach long before college. He didn't break. He adapted. He led. And in 1979, he stood face to face with Larry Bird in one of the most iconic college games of all time. The entire nation was watching. It wasn't just a game, it was a showdown between two rising stars who would define an era. Magic didn't just play, he commanded the court, turning it into something electric. Let's pause for a second. This wasn't just about basketball. This was about a young man who had been told he didn't belong, who had been laughed at for collecting trash, who had lost his best friend. Now he was shining on the biggest stage in college basketball, with America finally catching up to what he had always known. He was made for greatness. When Michigan State won the national title that year, Magic walked off the court not just as a champion, but as a force. The NBA was next, but the next level didn't come with confetti. It came with fire, and the moment Magic Johnson entered the league, the world would never be the same. When Magic Johnson entered the NBA in 1979, he didn't ease into it. He exploded. Drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers as the #1 overall pick, he landed right in the middle of Hollywood lights, media frenzy, and sky-high expectations. But for Magic, that pressure felt familiar. He'd already faced something tougher, being invisible. Veteran players weren't convinced. Some thought he was too young, too flashy. His smile? Too much. His no-look passes? Gimmicks. Even the press mocked him for being overly cheerful. But what they didn't understand was this. He wasn't smiling because things were easy. He smiled because he had already survived worse. And then came the moment that changed everything. It was 1980. The Lakers were in the NBA Finals. Their star, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, had gone down with an ankle injury before Game 6. The team was rattled. They needed leadership. Magic, just 20 years old, did something that made jaws drop. On the plane to Philadelphia, he walked up to the front and sat in Kareem's seat. "I'll handle it," he said. And he did. In one of the greatest performances in NBA history, Magic played all 5 positions, including center. He dropped 42 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals. The Lakers won the championship, and Magic was named Finals MVP as a rookie. That wasn't just a game, that was a statement. He wasn't here to impress, he was here to take over. The 1980s became the era of Showtime, and Magic Johnson was its heartbeat. His passes were so smooth, they looked impossible. His court vision seemed superhuman. The Lakers were no longer just a team, they were a spectacle. Magic averaged more than 11 assists per game over his career, racked up 138 triple-doubles, and took the team to 9 NBA Finals. But underneath all the glamour, the pressure was brutal. He had signed a then-record 25-year, $25 million contract, life-changing money, but terrifying for a kid who used to count pennies for bus fare. The NBA grind wore him down. His back would lock up so badly after games he'd lay on the locker room floor whispering, "Lord, just let me stand tomorrow." Let's not forget, he was still only in his 20s. He didn't complain. He kept going. Even when teammates resented the spotlight. Even when rivals targeted him with elbows and body checks. Even when cameras followed him everywhere. He just played. And he played better than anyone else, but success came at a cost. Late nights, sore knees, endless travel, and underneath it all, a loneliness he rarely talked about. People loved Magic, he said, but they forgot about lonely. Some nights, he sat alone in his hotel room, surrounded by luxury, but feeling like that same boy from Lansing, hoping someone would pass him the ball. Still, he gave everything to the game. 5 championships, 3 MVP awards, a legacy that lifted not just a franchise, but the entire sport. By the late 1980s, Magic wasn't just a basketball player. He was a cultural icon, a symbol of joy, talent, and what was possible. But as the lights burned brighter, a shadow was forming, one that would shake the entire world. The shadow didn't creep in. It hit like lightning. On November 7th, 1991, the world stopped as Magic Johnson stepped up to a podium, looked down for just a second, and said the 12 words that would silence a nation. "Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will retire." That single sentence shattered the image of invincibility that had surrounded him. Just 32 years old, still dominating on the court, Magic's announcement didn't just end a career, it detonated a cultural moment. America wasn't ready. In 1991, HIV was widely misunderstood. There was no cure, limited treatment, and massive fear. People didn't just hear HIV, they heard death. Myths and misinformation ran wild. Some believed you could get it from sweat or a handshake. So when Magic made his diagnosis public, the world didn't rally behind him. It panicked. Let's take a moment to understand what that really meant. Locker rooms went silent. Some players said they didn't want to share a court with him. Commentators questioned if he should ever play again. Headlines screamed fear. The man who had lit up arenas was now seen as a health threat. It was a cruel reversal, but the private pain went even deeper. Magic had just married his longtime love, Cookie Kelly, 7 weeks earlier. She was pregnant. The fear wasn't just for him, it was for her and their unborn child. Cookie described it later. It felt like the ground disappeared from under my feet. They waited in agony for the test results. Days passed like lifetimes. Finally, the news came. Cookie tested negative. So did the baby. They cried together, relief crashing over them like a wave. But surviving the diagnosis didn't mean the battle was over. It was only the beginning. Magic wanted to play again. And in February 1992, he returned to the court for the NBA All-Star Game. He scored 25 points and earned MVP honours, a triumphant return. But even that came with backlash. Some players had campaigned against his inclusion. Fear was still louder than understanding. Later that year, he joined the Dream Team at the Barcelona Olympics, but whispers never stopped. When he tried returning again in 1996, the noise followed. The public still wasn't sure. Should he be here? Is it safe? And when he tried coaching the Lakers in 1994, the experiment failed. He was seen not as a leader, but a leftover from a past era. The team crumbled. Players didn't respond. After just 16 games, Magic walked away. It wasn't basketball that rejected him. It was the fear that lived around him. Magic once said, "I thought basketball would always be there for me." But suddenly, it wasn't. Not the way it had been. The game that lifted him up was now slipping away. But this is where Magic proved who he really was. He didn't disappear. He didn't collapse. He rebuilt. In a world that saw HIV as the end, he made it his beginning. And instead of waiting for understanding, he set out to create it himself. Magic Johnson didn't just step away from basketball, he stepped into something even harder. Life after the NBA wasn't about money or fame anymore. It was about purpose. After years of bright lights, packed arenas and non-stop travel, he found himself back on the streets of Los Angeles, walking through neighborhoods others had written off. In the early 1990s, Magic saw something most people overlooked. Potential in places that looked forgotten, old theatres falling apart, empty storefronts gathering dust. But instead of seeing loss, he saw opportunity. These weren't abandoned blocks, they were mirrors of where he came from. But not everyone believed in his vision. When he pitched plans to banks to revitalise these communities, build theatres, invest in black neighbourhoods, and bring premium brands where they had never existed, he was laughed out of the room. One banker said, "Stick to basketball." Another told him, "People there don't drink premium coffee." But Magic wasn't asking for permission. He was betting on himself. His first big swing? The Baldwin Hills Theatre. It wasn't glamorous at first, but it worked. Families started showing up. Kids bought tickets. Local jobs were created. It was more than a movie theatre. It was a message. We deserve quality too. And then came Starbucks. In the late 1990s, Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, asked Magic a simple question. Could Starbucks succeed in underserved urban communities? Magic's answer? Absolutely. You just don't know my community yet. He invested his own money, millions of dollars. If it failed, the critics would have said, "Told you so." But it didn't fail. It exploded. Lines wrapped around the block. His Starbucks stores were more than coffee shops. They became safe spaces, places where people could meet, work, and just breathe. When he sold his stake in 2010, Magic walked away with $75 million in cash. But the money was never the point. He said it himself. Sometimes, the first victory after losing everything is proving you can stand again. That idea became the engine behind Magic Johnson Enterprises. He moved into financial services, real estate, entertainment, and sports ownership. His firm, Equitrust, began managing over $14 billion in assets. And in 2012, Magic returned to where it all started, the game, but this time as an owner. He joined the group that bought the Los Angeles Dodgers for nearly $2 billion. Fans cried watching him walk onto the field, not in a jersey but in a suit, not as a player but as a man who had come full circle, and that was only the beginning. He went on to take ownership stakes in the LA Sparks, LAFC, and in 2023 became part of the historic group that bought the Washington Commanders for $6.05 billion, the biggest deal in NFL history. Think about that. A boy who once rode garbage trucks was now making billion-dollar sports deals, not for attention, not for power, but to build, to represent, to show what's possible when resilience outlasts rejection. And by the time Magic Johnson turned 65, his net worth passed $1.5 billion. He didn't just survive, he transformed. But behind all the numbers, the titles, and the suits was still the same man who remembered being laughed at on a street corner. And he never forgot what it meant to feel small. That's why his biggest victories weren't just in boardrooms, they were in how he rebuilt his life from the ground up. Behind all the business success, Magic Johnson's personal life was filled with just as many battles and just as much healing. Years before he became a father, before HIV, before the world started calling him a mogul, Magic was just a young man figuring out love for the first time. In the late 1970s, back when he was still at Michigan State, Magic met Melissa Mitchell. She wasn't dazzled by his rising stardom. She saw him, Irvin, not the legend. Their love was quiet, steady. They talked for hours, shared dreams, and imagined a future most young couples only hope for. But then came 1979. Magic entered the NBA, and the speed of his life changed overnight. Games, flights, endorsements. It was all too fast. Meanwhile, Melissa stayed behind in the quieter world they used to share. Phone calls became shorter, visits became rare. The drift wasn't dramatic, it was just slow and sad. Then, in 1981, Melissa gave birth to Andre, Magic's first son. When Magic held him for the first time, something cracked open inside him. But he wasn't ready. At only 21, Magic was a global icon, but still learning what it meant to be a father. "I didn't know how to be a dad," he admitted later. "It wasn't an excuse, it was the truth." Melissa raised Andre on her own, quietly, gracefully, and Magic watched from afar, always aware that he was missing moments he couldn't get back. Birthdays, first steps, first words. The small things that shape a child's world. It wasn't scandalous, it was simply painful. But life gave them a second chance. Andre grew up into a grounded, thoughtful young man, and over time, he and Magic reconnected, not through flash or grand gestures, but with effort, consistency, and love. Today, Andre works as a key executive in Magic Johnson Enterprises. Father and son now stand side by side, not just as family, but as partners. Let's not stop there, because then came Cookie. Magic first met Cookie Kelly at Michigan State too. She wasn't interested in the glitz. She liked Irvin for who he really was. Their relationship had ups and downs. They broke up, they got back together, but through it all, there was a quiet connection that kept pulling them back in. They finally married on September 14th, 1991. Cookie was pregnant with their first child together, EJ. They were decorating their new home, dreaming about a calm future. And then, everything changed. 7 weeks after the wedding, Magic came home with the news. He had tested positive for HIV. Cookie was devastated, not angry, just terrified. She didn't know if she was infected. She didn't know if their unborn baby was safe. And this was 1991, when HIV wasn't just misunderstood, it was demonized. They waited for the test results. Days turned into eternity. The pressure was unimaginable. And then the phone call came. Cookie was negative. So was the baby. But the relief didn't end the storm. They still had to live in it, together. Some nights, Cookie said nothing. She just sat beside Magic while he stared into silence. Other nights, they held hands and prayed. Cookie faced public judgment. People said she stayed for money, but she stayed for love, for the vows they had just made, for the life they still believed in. Magic once said, "I don't know if I deserved her then, but I grew into the man she believed I could be." Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it was real, and in every moment they chose to stay, to rebuild, to believe, they proved something simple and powerful. Love doesn't run, it roots itself deeper. Just when Magic Johnson thought he had faced every kind of pain, life reminded him that being a father is its own battlefield. Because it's one thing to survive your own storms, but it's something entirely different to watch your children go through theirs. In 2013, Magic's son, E.J. Johnson, now an adult, sat across from him and shared a truth that required real courage. He came out as gay. He wasn't loud, he wasn't dramatic, he just spoke his truth, hoping it would be enough. For Magic, it was a moment that froze time, not because he didn't love his son, but because he was afraid, for him. He thought about the names he was called growing up, the cruelty of a world that punishes people for being different. "I didn't want EJ to feel that kind of pain," he admitted. He didn't react perfectly. There was hesitation, silence. But then, something simple and powerful happened. Cookie reached over, touched his arm and said, "This is our son. Love him first, learn him later." That one sentence changed everything. From there, Magic chose to grow. He listened, he asked questions, he let go of outdated ideas. Over time, that gap between father and son shrank. They talked, they connected, and they healed. Magic later said, "EJ didn't just come out, he helped me grow up." Today, their bond is rock solid. EJ lives boldly and proudly, and Magic stands with him, not just as a father, but as an example of how love can evolve. But that wasn't the only storm to shake their family. In December 2018, his daughter, Elisa Johnson, was staying at a friend's house in Los Angeles when armed intruders broke in. What followed lasted only minutes, but for Elisa, it felt like an eternity. She ran barefoot into the night, heart racing, the pavement slicing her feet. For all the money and fame her family had, in that moment, none of it could protect her. When Magic got the call, something inside him cracked. "I've never felt so helpless," he said. "All my life I fought battles with my own hands, but this, I couldn't protect her." When he finally got to her, she was shaking, mascara streaked down her cheeks, barefoot, but alive. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. That hug wasn't just about love, it was about survival. It was about relief that words couldn't express. And it brought him to a sobering truth. No matter how much success he had, he couldn't shield his kids from everything. He couldn't control the world. He could only be there, to catch them when they fell, to listen, to guide, to love without condition. These experiences didn't just test him, they reforged him. They taught him that greatness isn't about trophies or money. It's about showing up, especially when it's hard. It's about admitting you don't always have the answers, but refusing to walk away from the people who need you. Magic's children didn't break him, they completed him. Grief has a way of finding you when the world thinks you've already endured enough. For Magic Johnson, the deepest losses of his life didn't come in front of cameras or under bright lights. They came in the quiet behind hospital room doors, when the people who shaped him slowly slipped away. In 2023, Magic lost his greatest teacher, Irvin Sr, his father. This was the man who woke up before sunrise to haul trash so his kids could eat. The man who never complained. The man who returned home exhausted, smelling of diesel and hard work, but always full of pride. Magic remembered sitting in that garbage truck cab, watching his dad lift bins twice his size, never asking for praise. "My father never raised his voice," Magic once said. "He raised his example." But in those final months, the man who once seemed invincible began to fade. His hands, once so strong, became thin and shaky. Magic sat with him, held those same hands, and watched as illness took away the physical strength, but not the dignity. When his father passed, Magic said it felt like the world shifted. "He was my compass," he admitted. "Now the needle's gone." But that wasn't the first time Magic had felt that kind of heartbreak. Years earlier, he had already said goodbye to another father figure, Dr. Jerry Buss, the longtime owner of the Lakers. To most, Buss was a sports legend, but to Magic, he was the man who believed in him when few others did. He didn't just offer Magic a contract, he offered him a future. When Magic was just a 20-year-old rookie, Buss looked him in the eye and said, "You're the future of this franchise." It wasn't a compliment. It was a declaration, one that Magic carried like a mission. As time passed, Buss became more than an owner. He became a mentor, a guide, a quiet anchor in the fast-moving world of professional sports. He taught Magic the business of basketball, how to think beyond the court. And when Buss got sick, Magic was there again, sitting beside him, telling stories, laughing at old memories, trying to ease the pain with presence, just as he would later do with his father. Losing them both didn't just hurt, it changed the gravity of his world. In quiet moments, Magic admitted, "I had all the success anyone could want, but I felt like a son who didn't know how to walk without his fathers." Because that's the part of success no one talks about. You can reach the top, but you still carry every lesson, every memory, every goodbye. Let's take a moment to reflect. These weren't just personal losses. These were the two men who built his foundation. One taught him how to live with honor. The other taught him how to dream with boldness. And now, both were gone. But Magic didn't let grief break him. He let it guide him. In how he raised his children. In how he ran his businesses. In how he mentored others. Their voices may be gone, but their lessons live in every decision he makes. That's what lasting impact looks like. And that's what real greatness becomes. Every morning, Magic Johnson wakes up and fights a battle most people never see. For 33 years, he has lived with HIV, a diagnosis that once carried a death sentence. But today, he's not just alive, he's thriving. Still, thriving doesn't mean it's easy. Each day starts the same. He sits at the edge of his bed, stretches, and takes a deep breath. His joints ache, his back protests. Years of MBA wear and decades of medications leave his body stiff. A small pill bottle sits on his nightstand. It clicks open, and in his hand rests the medicine that keeps him alive. He never misses a dose, not once. "Consistency is survival," he says. One missed pill could trigger a domino of health complications, and as he takes it, he remembers, there was a time when this pill didn't exist, when hope was a rumour, not a reality. That quiet discipline defines him. Through pain, exhaustion, and sleepless nights, Magic keeps going. Some evenings, the pain climbs down his spine into his legs. Other nights, insomnia traps him in long stretches of silence. Cookie often hears the rustle of sheets before he speaks. She reaches out, places a hand over his heart, and says two words that still anchor him. "I'm here." In the late 1990s, there were nights he barely slept more than 90 minutes. Sometimes he paced the room with swollen ankles, wondering if tomorrow would hurt more than today, but he never gave in. Not then, not now. And that's the part the public rarely sees. They see the man smiling courtside, the owner of billion-dollar franchises, the business icon, but behind every strong photo is a man who fought for every step. Each morning he exercises, cardio, stretching, strength work, not for vanity, but to reclaim control over his body. Every drop of sweat is a reminder that he's still here. Every mile on the treadmill is one more mile HIV doesn't get to take from him. Let's talk about the life he's built. Magic's Beverly Hills estate looks like a modern sanctuary. Glass-lined hallways, stone terraces, citrus gardens, and a heated pool. Down the coast, his Dana Point villa overlooks the Pacific Ocean. In Palm Springs, his desert home offers stillness when the world gets too loud. These homes aren't just signs of wealth, they're symbols of survival. His garage holds Rolls-Royces, Maybachs, Bentleys, but they sit next to memories of bus tokens and garbage trucks. His watch vault includes rare timepieces, each a nod to the time he once feared he'd never have. He travels in Gulfstream jets. Vacations unfold on private yachts through the Bahamas or Amalfi Coast. Chefs prepare his meals, consultants curate his art, But still, the greatest luxury he ever earned is time. Time with Cookie, with his kids, with the life he almost lost. And none of it softened him, it strengthened him. His business empire continues to grow. Through Magic Johnson Enterprises, he's created jobs, revitalized communities, and built real wealth in spaces that had been ignored. His foundation has given millions to HIV awareness, scholarships, health programs, and families navigating the same battles he fought. But the magic most people don't see, he's at home, having breakfast with Cookie, talking to EJ with pride, encouraging Elisa's growth, working side by side with Andre to protect the legacy he's building. He isn't clinging to power, he's preparing, setting up generational wealth, making sure his family is cared for long after he's gone. Because that's what men shaped by loss understand. Love is not just a feeling, it's planning, protecting, preparing, and that brings us to the heart of the story. Magic Johnson's life isn't just a sports story, it's not even a survival story. It's a blueprint for resilience, for transformation, for becoming more than what the world expected of you. He rose from poverty, he was humbled by illness, he rebuilt his life again and again until even doubt had to give up trying to stop him. And now, at 66 years old, Magic Johnson isn't defined by what he lost. He's defined by how he kept rising, day after day, breath after breath,